Srinath, so great to be together.
Absolutely.
We haven't seen each other face to face other than on video for a while. This has been a tough COVID period, but let me thank you in person for really being a fabulous leader of the Lancet Commission and all the work on COVID. I knew when I was asked to chair that commission, I wanted a world leader in public health, and thought of you immediately, so I was really, really grateful.
Well, Jeff, you've always been the thought leader, but you've also emerged as the conscience of the world.
Just some tea, no sugar. Yeah, thank you.
Milk, sir?
No milk, thanks. I'll do it the American way. Thank you.
Yeah, black tea, please. No milk for me either.
Sugar?
No, thank you.
Good to hear that. I never understood it.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cheers. I must say, this is my 45th year of coming to India, and India has had an incredible impact on my life, my understanding, and the dream of being in a beautiful place like this, the Imperial Hotel in Delhi, to have a cup of tea with you is something that's stunning for me, considering the first visit that I came on. I was a graduate student. I came with my soon-to-be wife, Sonia, who you know well, and we couldn't afford anything, so we stayed in places that were about $5 a night. And once in a while, we snuck into a nice hotel for a little air conditioning. But other than that, it was a pretty rugged backpacking trip. But you may not know that when I came here, I was enrolled in the economics department at Harvard, but also the Harvard Law School. And I thought I would be a lawyer and with economics training. But when I came to India, I was so impressed and moved with the challenge of economic development that I said, I better study this. So India really was captivating, mesmerizing, as it has been for me for 45 years. And being able to watch the dramatic changes has been something, but it affected my whole life and choice of career also. So it was a very moving experience. And in that context, great to be with you 45 years on to reflect together a little bit about how India is doing. You've been leading and watching for a long time, especially from the public health and the medical side. How do you see these last 45 years, if I could say, in terms of public health and the areas you've been really pioneering?
Well, let me start by saying welcome to India again.
Thank you.
45 years ago, I was doing my fellowship in cardiology, and if I had met you then, we might have offered you some accommodation with a toilet,
okay,
which I believe you didn't have when you visited as a backpacker.
You know, there were two couples together, and the only thing we fought over each day was who would get the toilet, because usually one room had, one room didn't. So it was that was the nature of an otherwise wonderful trip.
Well, these 45 years have seen India transforming in very many ways. I think since independence, we have had a lot of progress in many dimensions. Economic, particularly since the early 1990s. But even in terms of health, where we have had and continue to have several challenges, in the last 20 years, we have seen a lot of improvement. But what strikes us as a task yet to be addressed adequately is the huge amount of disparities that exist, both between states, within states, between different social classes. And it is these disparities that need to be really bridged if India has to have a faster pace of progress. And that is the task I believe we must address ourselves to as we move along.
One of the things that always puzzled me about India, a democracy from the start of independence, was actually how little the government's invested in health for quite a long time. I never quite understood that. You raised the flag that public health is central for India's well-being and for development, but why was it such a heavy lift? It seems strange that that health wouldn't be central, especially in a democratic setting.
Well, I think the economists have been to blame, frankly.
I can believe that for many things. I would not deny it for a moment.
I think there was a prevailing philosophy, even in the United States and elsewhere too, that health is more of a social obligation rather than an economically productive enterprise. That, in fact, one of your famous economists described it as healthcare as a cost disease. And
which one was that?
I think it was Bagley. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think so.
Awful.
Look at that. So subsequently, we have had many of our own economists saying the same thing, that yes, let's give some services.
That's just a cost center.
Yeah, but let's focus on agriculture, industry, and then service sector, that we actually can provide a lot of services to other parts of the world. And that's where our economic growth will come from. And investment in health actually fell by the wayside. Even as the population grew, and even as the health needs grew, the investment in health really did not keep up. For a long time, the needle was stuck at 0.9% of the GDP.
0.9 of 1%
of GDP.
It's stunning.
Yes.
When you think about it.
And even now, it's somewhere between 1.2 to 1.4.
Yeah, and it is one of the lowest levels of effort relative to the economy of any part of the world, actually.
Exactly, exactly.
Very peculiar.
So, given that situation, we have seen how your own contribution helped to change a bit. Your WHO Macroeconomics of Health Commission, then the two Investing in Health reports that came from, firstly from the World Bank and then from the Lancet. All of these started raising the issue of why investments in health are important even for protecting and accelerating economic progress. And that you cannot really ignore the bidirectional relationship between economic development and health. While economic development with the rise in per capita income undoubtedly improves population health, you have to also invest in health of the population in order to ensure that economies will continue to be protected and will prosper. And the bidirectional relationship between poverty and individual ill health also came very much clearer. That is, that people who are poor are more likely to get ill, and people who get ill are more likely to be catapulted into poverty, or their poverty gets even aggravated further. So,
just to tell you one word about that commission, which was a great experience for me, 2 words about it. This was 23 years ago, this Commission on Macroeconomics and Health at WHO. At the time, the Director General of WHO was Gro Brundtland. Dr. Brundtland was the former Prime Minister of Norway, and we know her as the leader who put sustainable development on the world scene. And she asked me to chair a WHO commission, World Health Organization, and I thought, well, that's a great honor, I'll do it. But she said, I need you to understand why, Jeff. I was Prime Minister of Norway, but I soon learned I had no power compared to the finance minister. So we need a commission that brings finance ministers together because they need to understand spend on health. And of course, one of the illustrious finance ministers that was on the commission and made the commission really have the impact that it did was Manmohan Singh. Your dear friend and the great finance minister of this country, who then became wonderful prime minister. And so it was in between his finance minister period and his prime ministership, he was on the commission. And when he became prime minister here, he said we should have a macroeconomics and health effort for India. So,
and actually that did change the mindset. Even if the investments did not really rise very fast, there was a focused effort to improve health through the National Rural Health Mission, which was initiated in 2005, soon after he became the Prime Minister. And then subsequently, it became the National Health Mission. And that is the mission that has really driven most of the health programs, initially starting with what could be seen as the MDG agenda, that is maternal and child health, HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, and under nutrition. But then it has evolved now to adopt the SDG agenda as the National Health Mission. Now they're really committed, at least in terms of the National Health Policy of 2017, to comprehensive primary health care, where non-communicable diseases, mental health, and a variety of other conditions which were previously not included have been brought in, and also to ensure that there is a greater degree of connectivity to secondary and tertiary levels of care in a bidirectional manner. So I think we are now seeing a much broader commitment to the concept of health in all dimensions.
fantastic.
Including health promotion and disease prevention.
That is a huge contribution of yours. And I wanted to ask you, when did you establish the foundation, the Public Health Foundation of India, and how has that gone?
Well, we established the foundation in 2006.
Okay.
So
just at that moment when the government was trying to raise public health.
In fact, our efforts started in 2004. In 2004,
Offer you one?
thank you. In 2004, we convened a national consultation through the Ministry of Health, in which the idea of establishing schools of public health in India was mooted, because India till that time did not have any schools of public health.
Wow.
There were a few institutions running masters in public health, in fact only one at that time. But public health was being taught in medical colleges as community medicine. Not too bad, but very incomplete. Because it was doctors teaching doctors how to run a rural clinic.
Right.
That's all. So the idea of in-depth epidemiology, biostatistics, demography, health economics, social sciences, all of these were really not
amazing,
not part of the education. And also most of these programs were not connected to health policy or health systems. So they had no influence whatsoever. We thought that we must establish institutions where we can truly bring in multidisciplinary learning, which can have multi-sectoral application. And therefore, anybody with an undergraduate degree in any discipline could come in. Of course, a lot of people with medical or nursing or other degrees with life sciences came in, but people were from social sciences background, economics, law, and we even had engineers coming in to learn public health from the engineering aspect of view, how to develop technologies for primary care, for example. So we built that very broad church and said, let's advance it to very strong health system engagement. Let's engage with the health systems both centrally and in the state governments and see how we can actually reinvigorate the programs from the planning stage to the implementation stage. And how do we develop technical capacity within the governments to better evaluate program design, delivery, and evaluation. So the idea was we needed to be very much focused on implementation as well, not just the problem diagnostic, and find the solutions there. So that is why we have actually now established 5 Indian Institutes of Public Health, a sixth one coming up now. And we believe that we have also catalyzed the Masters in Public Health programs in number of universities and medical colleges which were previously not open to that. And now there seems to be a far greater interest in developing public health expertise and raising the number of public health professionals who can flood the system with their expertise so that the health of India can be better configured and better delivered.
It's amazing. And it is also stunning that as of 2006, there were not schools of public health. And it makes me connect with something you said earlier, which was that since independence, India has been making progress. And one of the facts of the colonial era was the utter and systematic, cruel, I would say, failure of the British, in this case, in the case of India's history, to look to the education system at all levels. But Britain had quite famous schools of public health, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine that you and I know well. It was an imperial enterprise, actually, in a way, because public health was partly to help the British Empire to be able to live in different ecosystems. But the idea under the British that there should be, in India, a vast continent with a vast population and many health challenges, similar institutions would never have been pursued.
Well, there was one institution that was started called the All India Institute of Hygiene, Public Health and Hygiene in Calcutta. But that really did not make much of a headway. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, again, the lack of multidisciplinarity was a major weakness. Mm-hmm. And the lack of health system connectivity was a major weakness. So by the time we started our foundation,
it was from scratch almost.
It was virtually from scratch.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the great divides that I see in all parts of the world in studying modern development, both the difficulties and the successes, is the dividing point of independence from colonial rule. Because for me, what I see in the historical data is that under colonial domination, for multiple reasons, the basics don't get taken care of, obviously, because the imperial power just isn't interested. Yes. So it is with India's independence, 1947, that you start seeing even basic literacy gradually start. But like you said, this is such a complex civilization. You can't even call it it's of course more than a country. Throughout history, roughly 20% of the world population, so many languages, so many groups in the Indian subcontinent, so much diversity, so many inequalities as well. Now something seems to be generally lifting.
You're absolutely right. Independence made a huge difference. Life expectancy in India was 32 years at the time of independence. Oh, now it is 70.4 years. Maternal mortality ratio was 1,000 per 100,000 live births. Now it is 97.
Just to emphasize, 1 in 100 women died in
yes.
Pregnancy-related or birth-related causes.
That's right. And infant mortality rate was 145 per 1,000.
Oh, God.
And now it is 28.
Yeah.
So there's been a tremendous amount of improvement that has happened, partly because, as you can well understand, from improvement in social conditions. Mm-hmm. And certainly somewhat of a greater investment in health, though that's been patchy across the country. In the same country, we find a huge difference. In Kerala, for example, our infant mortality rate in the south, it is 6 per thousand. Whereas in Madhya Pradesh, it is about 48 per thousand. So we are seeing almost an 8-fold difference. And other states lie in between. So I think our task now is to ensure that all the states actually adopt the policies that have made Kerala and Tamil Nadu the standout states. And in fact, when people ask me what's your prescription for health in India, I say the social determinants of Kerala and the health system of Tamil Nadu.
There you go.
If that combination is adopted across all states, then we'll see a very different picture.
And you see it happening.
We see it happening, yes.
There's interest now across the country at the state level.
Yes.
And the union government, the central government, is pushing more and more for this.
I think while there has been interest in ensuring that health is seen as an important aspect of our all-round development, the COVID experience has really accelerated investment in health and also trying to keep, essentially brought it to the center stage. Our attempt now is to keep it there so that it doesn't again go to the fringe of the policy-making priorities. Because there is a sense of comfort now, and rightly so, that we have seen the end of COVID as a major threat in India. If you go around, you'll see nobody is wearing masks. People are crowding around. And there's a feeling that with Omicron, we now have reached a steady state of coexistence. But we know that there can be new pandemics, and we know that there can be other health threats. And one of the key lessons that I keep emphasizing to the policymakers is that unless you have an efficient, equitable, and empathetic health system functioning reliably in the steady state without a public health emergency, you will not be able to mount a swift, strong, and sustained response when there is a public health emergency.
Boy, and
you can't run on one leg.
If we could call that Srinath's theorem or something like that, it fits exactly the U.S. context, because the U.S., a rich country, spends a fortune on health care, but without the social equity, without the trusted public health system. And when COVID hit, it was chaotic, and more than 1 million people died in the United States, one of the highest death rates per population in the world, because there was no system that was equitable and trusted.
Yes.
And every single issue became a partisan issue or a political issue or a social conflict rather than a social response where people work together.
Fortunately, we did not see that kind of polarization in India.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
People did not question the government in terms of masks, the advice, and in general accepted vaccines in the initial stages at least. If people did not wear masks properly, that was a different issue. But there was really no pushback against public health advisories. And it also happened that the center and the states, despite the political divides, did work together.
Yeah, phenomenal. So now, one thing extremely exciting about this year is that India is not only in economic growth about the fastest in the world, but it's also the president of the G20 this year. So the world leaders will be coming to India. Ministers of health, of finance, foreign affairs, and so forth will be coming all year to India. And that's something special, it seems to me.
Yes, actually, I think India, with its classic hospitality, is now laying out the red carpet. There are 200 meetings that have been arranged this year across different cities of India. so that diverse aspects of international collaboration to meet common challenges, that is really being mounted on a very large scale. And therefore, we will be seeing a lot of international attention being focused on India, and in turn, India offering its own services to build a global compact where we can actually address common challenges.
Phenomenal. We're just coming from the African Union Summit now, and there's so much excitement about India's presidency of the G20 and high expectations because of lots of close collaboration between India and Africa and collaborations that are building.
Yes, actually, in the second half of the 20th century, we saw India as one of the leaders of the non-aligned movement. Now, of course, with political polarities in the world changing from the pre-Cold War era to the post-Cold War era, the non-aligned movement may not necessarily have the same type of visibility and relevance. But the need for global cooperation is all the more urgent now. And therefore, having India play a fairly strong role in bringing in not only the world together to the extent it can, through the G20 presidency, but also voicing the priorities and perspectives of the low and middle income countries. That becomes absolutely important. I mean, we saw how with South Africa, India actually tabled a motion in the World Trade Organization asking for waiver of patent rights. I mean, who would think that even when faced with a pandemic which was killing so many people across the world, paralyzing the economy, really bringing life to a standstill, still profit motives of private industry should prevail over public good. Yet, feet were dragged all over the place.
Exactly, and especially by yours truly, the Western powers.
Yes, which is extremely sad. And therefore, I think it is a call to conscience that must still ring out loud. At the same time, we must create platforms for practical collaboration where we can actually identify common problems and find out solutions that we can actually implement together. Any global threat needs a global thrust to counter it. Without that, we will find failure. And what the high-income countries must recognize, or even we must recognize, is that if we allow failures to continue in any part of the world, they will inevitably spill over to other parts of the world in a highly globalized, interconnected, interdependent world. And therefore, it is absolutely important, both as a matter of enlightened self-interest and as a part of ennobling altruism, that we must collaborate with each other.
Yeah. It's surprisingly such a hard lesson to have people understand, even after a pandemic, even after COVID spread to each part of the world, that we have to take care of each other. But I think India's voice is going to make a huge difference. And I'm very excited about the fact that for 4 years in a row, starting with Indonesia last year holding the G20 presidency, India this year, Brazil next year, and South Africa next year. These are 4 fresh voices on the world stage that say, do it a little bit differently. And so I'm very much excited about that, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we call it football, you call it soccer. It's like the ball being passed beautifully from one star player to another star player towards the goal. So let's hope that it happens.
I think we're going to make some progress. And I just wanted to close and ask you, we're in the Imperial Hotel. This is, of course, the British name for the British Raj era. But who is the Prime Minister of Britain now? It is Rishi Sunak, of course, of Indian heritage and the son-in-law of one of India's great thought leaders and business leaders. So that's a bit of a turn of the table.
Well, we have had your vice president as well, a person of
course,
Indian
we had
origin.
Kamala
And
Harris,
before
yes.
that, we have had people in the Caribbean, persons of Indian origin. And we have had in Mauritius persons of Indian origin. But I think the more important thing is not to look at them as persons purely of Indian ethnicity, but a place where the world is willing to accept others as equals. I mean, this is a long cry from those days of colonialism, where people of color were considered to be inferior and to be sort of discriminated against. I think it's a tremendous progress since then, but we know we still have to achieve a lot because still there is a fair amount of bigotry, a fair amount of prejudice that exists in pockets of all countries, yours and mine.
Exactly.
And we need to fight that so that we actually can achieve in the 21st century a true era of enlightenment.
Cheers to you for leading the way, Srinath.
Thank you.
So wonderful to be together with you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Jeff.